Bhagavad Gita, Chapter 3, The Yoga of Action, Summary of Third Discourse. In order to remove moha or attachment, which was the sole cause of Arjun's delusion, Sri Krishna taught him the imperishable nature of the Atma, the realization of which would grant him the freedom of the eternal. A doubt, therefore, arises in Arjun's mind as to the necessity of engaging in action even after one has attained this state. Sri Krishna clears this doubt by telling him that although one has realized oneness with the eternal, one has to perform action through the force of Prakriti or nature. He emphasizes that perfection is attained not by ceasing to engage in action, but by doing all actions as a divine offering, imbued with a spirit of non-attachment and sacrifice. The man of God vision Sri Krishna explains to Arjun need not engage in action as he has attained everything that has to be attained. He can be ever absorbed in the calm and immutable self, but to perform action for the good of the world and for the education of the masses is no doubt superior. Therefore, action is necessary, not only for one who has attained perfection, but also for one who is striving for perfection. See, Sri Krishna quotes the example of Janaka, the great sage king of India, who continued to rule his kingdom even after attaining God realization. Prakriti or nature is made up of three qualities: Rajas, Tamas, and Sattva. The Atma is beyond these three qualities and their functions. Only when knowledge of this fact dawns in man does he attain perfection. The Lord tells Arjun that each one should do his duty according to his nature, and that doing duty that is suited to one's nature in the right spirit of detachment will lead to perfection. Arjun raises the question as to why man commits such actions that cloud his mind and drag him downwards by force, as it were. Sri Krishna answers that it is desire that impels man to lose his discrimination and understanding, and thus commit the wrong actions. Desire is the root cause of all evil actions. If desire is removed, then the divine power manifests in its full glory, and one enjoys peace, bliss, light, and freedom. Verse 1, Arjun said, If it be thought by thee that knowledge is superior to action, O Krishna, why then, O Kesava, dost thou ask me to engage in this terrible action? With these apparently perplexing words, thou confusest me, as it were, my understanding. Therefore, tell me that one way for certain by which I may attain bliss. The Blessed Lord said, In this world there is a twofold path. As I said before, O sinless one, the path of knowledge of the Sankhyas and the path of action of the Yogis. Not by the non-performance of actions does man reach actionless, nor by mere renunciation does he attain to perfection. Verily, none can ever remain for even a moment without performing action, for everyone is made to act helplessly indeed by the qualities born of nature. He who, restraining the organs of action, sits thinking of the sense objects in mind, he of deluded understanding is called a hypocrite. But whosoever, controlling the senses by the mind, O Arjun, engages himself in karma yoga with the organs of action without attachment, he excels. Do thou perform thy bound duty, for action is superior to inaction, and even the maintenance of the body would not be possible for thee by inaction. The world is bound by actions other than those performed for the sake of sacrifice. Do thou therefore, O son of Kunti, perform action for that sake, for sacrifice alone, free from attachment. The Creator, having in the beginning of creation created mankind together with sacrifice, said, By this shall ye propagate. Let this be the milch cow of your desires, the cow which yields the desired objects. With this do you nourish the gods, and may the gods nourish you. Thus nourishing one another, we shall attain to the highest good. The gods, nourished by the sacrifice, will give you the desired objects. So, he who enjoys the objects given by the gods without offering in return to them is verily a thief. The righteous who eat of the remnants of the sacrifice are freed from all sins, but those sinful ones who cook the food only for their own sake verily eat sin. From food come forth beings, and from rain food is produced. From sacrifice arises rain, and sacrifice is born of action. Know thou that action comes from Brahma, and Brahma proceeds from the imperishable. Therefore, the all-pervading Brahma ever rests in sacrifice. He who does not follow the wheel, thus set revolving, who is of sinful life, rejoicing in the senses, he lives in vain, O Arjun. But for that man who rejoices only in the self, who is satisfied in the self, who is content in the self alone, verily there is nothing to do. For him there is no interest whatsoever in what is done or what is not done, nor does he depend on any being for any object. Therefore, without attachment, do thou always perform action which should be done, for by performing action without attachment, man reaches the Supreme. Janaka and others attain perfection verily by action alone, even with a view to the protection of the masses. Thou shouldst perform action. Whatsoever a great man does, that other men also do. Whatever he sets up as a standard, that the world follows. There is nothing in the three worlds, O Arjun, that should be done by me, nor is there anything unattained that should be attained. Yet I engage myself in action, for should I not ever manage myself in action, unwearied men would in every way follow my path, O Arjun. These worlds would perish if I did not perform action. I should be the author of confusion of castes and destruction of these beings. As the ignorant men act from attachment to action, Bharat Arjun, so should the wise act without attachment, wishing the welfare of the world. Let no wise man unsettle the minds of ignorant people who are attached to action. He should engage them in all actions, himself fulfilling them with devotion. All actions are wrought in all cases by the qualities of nature only. He whose mind is deluded by egoism thinks, I am the doer. But he who knows the truth, O mighty armed Arjun, about the division of the qualities and their functions, knowing that the gunas as senses move amidst the gunas as the sense objects, is not attached. Those deluded by the qualities of nature are attached to the functions of the qualities. A man of perfect knowledge should not unsettle the foolish one of imperfect knowledge. Renouncing all actions in me, with the mind centered in the self, free from hope and egoism and from mental fever, do thou fight. Those men who constantly practice this teaching of mine with faith and without cavilling, they too are freed from actions. But those who carp at my teaching and do not practice it, deluded in all knowledge and devoid of discrimination, know them to be doomed to destruction. Even a wise man acts in accordance with his own nature. Beings will follow nature, What can restraint do? Attachment and aversion for the objects of the senses abide in the senses. Let none come under their sway, for they are his foes. Arjun says in verse 36, but impelled by what does man commit sin? Though against his wishes, O Varshaneya Krishna, constrained as it were by force, the Blessed Lord said, better is one's own duty, though devoid of merit, than the duty of another well discharged. Better is death in one's own duty, the duty of another is fraught with fear. It is desire, it is anger, born of the quality of rajas, all sinful and all devouring. Know this, as the foe here in this world, as fire is enveloped by smoke, as a mirror by dust, and as an embryo by the amnion, so is this enveloped by that. O Arjun, wisdom is enveloped by this constant enemy of the wise in the form of desire, which is unappeasable as fire. The senses, mind and intellect are said to be its seat. Through these it deludes the embodied by veiling his wisdom. Therefore, O best of the Bharats, Arjun, controlling the senses first, do thou kill this sinful thing, the desire, the destroyer of knowledge and realization. They say that the senses are superior to the body, superior to the senses in the mind. Superior to the mind is the intellect, and one who is superior even to the intellect is he, the self. Thus, knowing him who is superior to the intellect and restraining the self by the self, slay thou, O mighty armed Arjun, the enemy in the form of desire, hard to conquer. This ends the 43 verses of the 3rd chapter of the Bhagavad Gita. Thus, in the Upanishads of the glorious Bhagavad Gita, the science of the eternal, the scripture of yoga, the dialogue between Sri Krishna and Arjun, ends the 3rd discourse entitled The Yoga of Action. Hari Om Tat Sat.